So if you know anything about what's happening in North Dakota, you know it's brutal. We did videos on it. Other people have videos out. Cops are brutalizing the Native Americans and the water protectors. They blew a woman's arm off. I showed you that in another video. Cops are throwing grenades at people, concussion grenades. They blew a woman's arm off, literally. They're shooting people in the groin and in the face with rubber bullets. They're macing people, and then it's sub-freezing. They take a water cannon out, and for 4 hours they spray them with water so all their clothes are frozen and they get hypothermia. This is what our government is doing to people at the behest of Barack Obama's donors, and he's not doing a goddamn thing about it. And there's no reporters out there. You know, nobody from MSNBC's going out there because Comcast doesn't want them out there, and they're not going. They got to talk more about Russia. Rachel Maddow's got to do a few more stories about Russia. And Chris Hayes has to talk about the James Comey letter some more. But something that's actually happening, fuck it. We make $30,000 a day. That's how much they make at MSNBC, the hosts. So here's a big fail from CNN. They decided to cover it, but they didn't send anybody out there to cover it. So I don't know how they covered it, but they got video. Here's the big fail. It starts off as a big fail. They go, protests over Dakota Access Pipeline have gone on for months and have recently turned violent. Oh, really? The protests have turned violent? You mean not goons hired by the oil companies are brutalizing peaceful protesters? So that would be more of an accurate. So now what's happened is news organizations have been bought by the people they're supposed to be investigating. And so now they've replaced objectivity with neutrality. So now they're neutral. They're neutral to, this is literally, because you can say the difference between being objective and neutral, you can be objective and say that guy's a piece of shit. You can be objective and say that guy's objectively, he's a criminal. Hey, objectively, that guy should be in jail. Objectively, that guy did something wrong. If you're neutral, you go, well, that guy says he didn't do something wrong. This guy says he does. I'm neutral. I don't know. So they're neutral to injustice. So that's what's happening out in North Dakota, injustice and brutality. And CNN is neutral. They didn't even send anybody out there. You know, they're jailing journalists out there. So that's how you know CNN didn't send anybody out there, because they would have got jailed. So let's listen to their bullshit. Here's their bullshit report that they put together. This is amazing. Watch this.
On the freezing plains of North Dakota, a bitter battle that shows little sign of abating.
It's nothing more than ecological racism.
One side calls it essential infrastructure.
Here it comes. One side says it's essential. The other side says it's not. Where is this? By the way, where's the reporter? Is this just an announcer? They have a voiceover actress doing this at a studio in New York City? Where is this reporter? And why does she have a British accent talking about North Dakota and Native Americans?
Water is life. The other calls it a danger to health and entire communities.
One side says it's good. The other side says it could kill them. What's the real answer? I guess we'll never know. I'm only a fucking reporter. It's only CNN with all the resources in the goddamn world. I guess we'll never know.
This is the Dakota Access Pipeline, a $3.7 billion project intended to connect and a project destined to divide. Here's the plan: to pump crude oil from the rural and energy-rich north-central U.S. to Illinois, more than 1,200 miles to the east.
And what she doesn't tell you is that it crosses the Missouri River, and pipelines always leak all the time. In fact, that company, Energy Transfer Partners, just got bought by Sunoco, which has the worst record for oil spills in the industry. So it's guaranteed it's going to leak. Guaranteed there'll be oil spills. And what she doesn't tell you is it's crossing over native land that's supposed to be protected by a treaty. They don't tell you that either.
From there, it can be transported to refineries on the eastern seaboard and the Gulf Coast. The pipeline is slated to run under the Missouri River, and the Standing Rock Sioux tribe, whose land borders the route, says it would affect its drinking water supply while putting communities further downstream at risk from oil spills and contamination.
Do you see how they're reporting all this? They say it would put it at risk. Well, would it put it at risk? Or wouldn't it put it at risk? When you put an oil pipeline under a river, is that at risk or not? Do oil pipelines leak? How often do they leak? When was the last time this company's pipelines leaked? Let's look at all the leaks from around the country just this year. Nothing. Nothing.
Protests have gone on for...
Protests. So there are people literally in the water. In the water. And what are these cops doing? Tear gassing them while they're in the water. They're just tear gassing them. For what? Women, unarmed, peaceful protesters trying to save their water from a fucking oil company. And these animals, which is what those cops are, and these animals are out there brutalizing those people, blowing their arms off, shooting them with water cannons, shooting mace in their face.
Months, but have recently turned violent.
Recently turned violent. Do you notice the passive language they're using? The situation turned violent. No, those out-of-control maniac goons that you call cops at the behest of oil companies in Wall Street are brutalizing innocent, nonviolent protesters. It didn't turn violent. You morally challenged reporter.
400 protesters facing off against well-armed police.
They were met by brutal force with water cannons, tear gas, pepper spray, and rubber bullets. And in an unbelievable amount. It was horrific. It was a horrific scene.
So who is this? Where does CNN? This is not a CNN reporter, or else that would say CNN around it. CNN didn't even send a goddamn reporter out there. They're taking videos from people. Right? That's not CNN. They would have a CNN thing around it.
How can I possibly report on this event as a reporter from CNN unless I'm just a voiceover actress?
But police say they're facing an ongoing riot.
Oh, police say they're facing... Well, are they facing an ongoing riot or aren't they? If you were out there reporting, you would be able to say, well, I was there all day and I noticed that the protesters were peaceful and the cops were fucking out of control. If you were there actually reporting, but you're not even there reporting. You're pretending like you're reporting, but you're not. That's not reporting. What that is repeating what your corporate overlords want you to say. You're not a reporter, and you don't have any shame because you do such a shit job. And you wonder why people get their news from YouTube? If people watch CNN, they wanted to find out about what was happening up there, they would have no idea what was happening. They would have no idea. Well, it sounds like those protesters are violent.
These images, published by the North Dakota Joint Information Center, purport to show improvised weapons used by
the North Dakota Joint Information. You mean the cops? Is that who put this out? The North Dakota Joint Information Center? You mean the cops who are beating the crap out of people, blowing women's arms off with concussion grenades, and shooting people in the crotch and in the face and water canning them in sub-zero? You mean that? Those people? The North Dakota Information, that they're saying that the protesters are violent.
Construction of the pipeline has been delayed while the Army Corps of Engineers engages in further talks with the Native American community. And as anger bubbles nationwide, this saga clearly has many miles yet to run.
Hey, thanks for that bullshit report. That totally misses the point and doesn't fill anybody in on what's really happening. But you did protect the brutal maniacs working for the government who are working, in fact, at the behest of Wall Street and oil companies. So that's the opposite of journalism. That's the opposite. You muddied the waters. Nobody knows what's going on now. No one has had any idea. The protests turned violent. The protests turned violent? How do these people sleep at night? Oh, I know, because you get tons of corporate cash and you just put it under your pillow and it's soft. So way to go, CNN. You're doing a horrible job, as usual. And you know what I love? There's another video on this channel about the CNN host lamenting the rise of fake news and what are we going to do about it? I'd rather read The Onion than watch CNN. You guys are a failure from time. Hey, why don't you give more money to Corey Lewandowski to come do propaganda on your show and then go, how did Trump happen? And you wonder why people get their news from YouTube.